I can't drink anymore. It hurts," said the beautiful college girl who had collapsed in front of me from acute alcohol poisoning. Her face was flushed and she seemed too drunk to control her body, causing her skirt to ride up and reveal her gorgeous legs. I covered her legs with a blanket and continued to help her in various ways. But a week later, a skinhead man in a black suit showed up at my apartment and practically forced me to come with him. Waiting for me at the destination was a tough-looking man. He slammed a large bottle of liquor down in front of me. "You need to take responsibility. First, drink this liquor. What will become of my fate? My name is Kyle. I was born in a rural village nestled in the mountains of the state. The people who live there are known for being heavy drinkers, and it's common for adults to have a drink every evening. Not only that, but most people had to work in the morning after having a hair of the dog drink to cure their hangover from the previous night's drinking. The local cuisine also includes dishes that are irresistible to alcohol lovers, such as tequila lime shrimp and whiskey marinade chicken. Of course, children don't drink alcohol, but eggnog is always served at celebratory occasions, and many of the snacks contain it. Growing up in that environment, when I heard that the human body is 70% water, I even thought it might be a mistake and actually be 70% alcohol. Naturally, my parents can hold down a drink very well, just like most people here. What's amazing is that while my father grew up in this area, my mother married into the family from a different region, yet she's also a heavy drinker. Because of that, she fit right into this area, and now it seems like she was born and raised up here, having become a respectable heavy drinker herself. The area where I grew up has a rural tendency to treat outsiders and those who marry into the community as strangers. However, even outsiders are warmly welcomed as long as they can hold their liquor. On the flip side, people's attitudes change completely towards those who can't drink at all. My uncle is a good example of this. My uncle's name is Tyler, and he's my father's younger brother. Unusually for this area, his body just can't handle alcohol, and he apparently feels sick after drinking even a little bit. After my uncle turned his age that he could drink and people found out he couldn't drink, they often pointed fingers at him behind his back. The same people who were kind to my outsider mother were cold to my uncle, treating him like he was invisible, even though he was from this area. In the end, he was ostracized and basically exiled, moving away somewhere when I was in middle school. I was fond of my uncle, so I spent many days crying into my pillow from the loneliness. Witnessing this local custom of ostracizing people regardless of their physical constitution frightened me at the time. I wondered what would happen if I also had a body that couldn't handle alcohol like my uncle. I didn't want to be separated from my family just because I couldn't drink. I even consulted my uncle about this. Looking back, it was incredibly rude of me to discuss such a thing with someone who couldn't drink alcohol themselves. I'm sure my uncle had complex feelings about it, but he still comforted me. Don't end up like me. Make sure you get used to alcohol, but be careful not to drink too much, or you'll be alcoholic. It's all about moderation. He kindly gave me that advice, which felt almost like his last words to me. I've taken those words to heart, and today I've reached the age that I can drink. Hey, Kyle, today's your birthday, right? We're meeting at the usual place. Let the others know, okay? I had entered university and joined the tennis club, but it was no different from the environment I grew up in. Despite being a club for playing tennis, it was a strange group full of heavy drinkers. Oh, you guys are gonna celebrate for me. You bet. Let's party hard today. But isn't that the same as always? Huh? Is it? My senior and I laughed after a brief pause. All right, I'll let the other club members know too. Yep, thanks. After saying that, we each headed to the seminars we were taking. Of course, there are times when we play tennis, as befits a tennis club. But to stay in this club, aside from playing tennis, you also need the powerful status of being a heavy drinker. That's because after every club activity, we go to a bar near the university and drink till morning. That's also considered part of the club activities. At the drinking sessions, the juniors are forced to chug their drinks. Anyone who can't do it is made to drink even more as punishment. It's unthinkable by today's standards, and of course it's wrong to force people to drink or make them chug, but back then that kind of drinking party was still normal. It's probably also because we had just learned to drink and didn't know the proper way. At the beginning of the school year, classmates who joined without knowing this quickly quit because they couldn't keep up with the atmosphere. Some quit voluntarily, while others were yelled at by seniors for refusing to attend the drinking parties, saying don't ever show your face here again from tomorrow, and then quit. And so, half a year after joining, the number of my classmates in the tennis club had been cut in half. It's really all things that would be unthinkable these days. In my case, I had been in the tennis club in high school, and I joined expecting the rumor that men and women who join a tennis club have a high probability of being in a relationship. But having grown up in the environment I did, I was able to stick with this club where the drinking parties were mandatory. What was unfortunate was that the rumor I heard was far from the truth. Of course there were girls, but there was no sign of the gentle and pure type of girl I liked anywhere. There were only lively girls who got violent when drunk. I couldn't bring myself to date any of them. Still, I felt comfortable in this club since I could drink, so I gave up on finding a girlfriend and spent my days partying with my clubmates every night. But that was only until last year. There was a beautiful girl who entered as a freshman this year, in a lower grade. Her name was Madison. With her outstanding beauty, she was a girl on campus who commanded respect. But she was in a different year than me, and I couldn't imagine such a girl joining this strange club full of heavy drinkers. Because of that, I convinced myself she was completely unrelated to me, only feasting my eyes on her when I occasionally saw her in the cafeteria. But lo and behold, she joined this tennis club full of drunkards. Not only was her tennis skill remarkable, she also attended every drinking party afterwards. After that, the seniors probably didn't want to lose her, so the custom of immediate expulsion for defying them at drinking parties disappeared, and the drinking parties themselves stopped being the crazy all-night affairs they used to be. It transformed into a club with moderate drinking parties, or rather, a proper tennis club. But of course, the virile male students weren't about to leave her alone as the it girl. Boys from every grade, upper and lower, tried various methods to get close to her. However, I've never heard of any of the approaches made to her succeeding so far. No matter how much of a Madonna she is, it would be strange if there wasn't at least one guy she liked among all the ones hitting on her, but the reason it hasn't happened is probably because of his presence. That he refers to the guy who has always been by her side since they enrolled. One of the reasons she's called it girl is probably also because she always walks around with him. The guy's name is Davis, and that's about all I know about him. Davis also doesn't seem to mind being by her side, and I've never seen him acting alone. When he comes to campus, eats in the cafeteria, even the seminars he takes, it's always together with Madison. If other guys try to make a move, he gives them a cold glance, unimaginable from the kind expression he has when looking at her, putting pressure on them as if to say you are trying to hit on her even though I'm here. Of course, the guys lose to that pressure and forget approaching her. They don't even try a second time. It's the same in the tennis club. When practicing, they're almost always paired together, and there are members who have never spoken to them. Naturally, the two of them attend the drinking parties together, but they sit at the edge of the group and drink cozily as if they're a separate organization. However, I've also never seen them acting all lovey-dovey like a couple. Well, it would be awkward for them to do that in the club. Either way, it's clear that Davis has feelings for Madison. Amidst all this, they stand out in a bad way as a pair that's hard for the club to deal with, while everyone else doesn't have a good impression of them. For some reason when I look at the two of them, I feel an indescribable sense of comfort. One day, the annual large-scale social gathering was held, involving tennis clubs from other universities. There are about 2 other universities near the one I attend, and we get together with members of their tennis clubs. In regional tournaments, we have a mutually stimulating rivalry, but at this once-a-year social gathering, we're on friendly terms sharing drinks. Of course, that famous pair is in attendance at this drinking party too. At the bar that became the venue for the gathering, at first people drank with their own university groups, but as time passed, students from different universities also drank and laughed together. Naturally, I also interacted with other people, and caught up in the atmosphere. I mingled with students from the other universities. The juniors were also dragged around by seniors to other groups, drinking together and seeming to have fun. In between, I occasionally glanced over to check on Madison and Davis, but as usual, the two of them were cozily drinking at the corner of their table. Hey, are those two always like that? The one who said that to me was the student I was closest with from another university. As soon as he saw Madison and Davis, he whispered to me with a puzzled expression. Yay, they are. I heard rumors about it, but they really are like that, huh? Rumors? You don't know. There's a rumor going around that an incredible beauty enrolled at your school. Isn't it too soon for rumors to be spreading? She just enrolled not long ago, and this social gathering is the first time we've interacted with other universities, right? Don't be stupid. If it's a rumor across the whole university, and not just the tennis club, of course someone's gonna bring that rumor to other universities. Apparently the rumors that had only been within campus had leaked outside somewhere. You're so lucky to have such a beautiful girl on the same campus as you, and in the same club too. It's like she's not even there. I've barely done more than greet her because her guard is so high, and she only practices with the guy next to her. Quit being so spoiled. I'd be happy just getting to see that beauty. Saying that, he put his hands together as if praying to Madison. Following his lead, I looked over at her, but at some point it seemed she had ended up alone. Huh? Where's the guy? He said something and left his seat. Probably went to the bathroom. He was so constantly by her side that it made you think he never even went to the bathroom, so I had never seen him leave her before. Seeing her sitting alone felt novel. At the same time, she also looked a bit lonely. Perhaps because I felt that way, my feet naturally started carrying me over to her to say something. But faster than that, a group of guys I had never seen smoothly surrounded her. Hey there, sweetie. Want a drink with us? The ones who said that and surrounded her were students from the university with the worst reputation among the three. Their faces were red, probably from being quite drunk, and they were grinning lecherously. Huh? I feel like I've seen this girl somewhere before. As one of them said that, another bent forward a bit to peer at her face as she looked down. After pondering for a bit, the student's expression suddenly brightened, and he made a hand gesture as if he had an epiphany. Ah, that's it. You're the daughter of Thomas Brewery, aren't you? Wow, you sure know your stuff. 'Cause listen to this. There was a brandy tasting event at that brewery the other day, and this girl was there with the company CEO. I was surprised to hear this new information about her, but the guys seemed like they were about to say more, so I just kept listening. And get this, the CEO let it slip while making small talk. Apparently this young lady cannot drink so much. One of them said mockingly while egging the others on. The other guys kept laughing and getting excited. What did he say again? Something like she faints just from smelling alcohol. So that's why you're just sipping your drink in the corner like this, huh? As if reacting to those words, she glared at the guys with a sharp expression. However, it only lasted a moment before she changed her expression to a smile. That's not true at all. Wasn't he just saying that kind of thing to liven up the atmosphere? They probably didn't notice her expression change in an instant. They continued to hit on her with relaxed faces. One of them filled an empty glass to the brim with beer and roughly set it in front of her. Oh really? Then prove it. Means you can chug this much, right? She looked at the beer poured into the glass and showed a momentarily confused expression, but quickly changed her demeanor again, back to her usual composed smile. Of course I can. Saying that, she forcefully grabbed a glass filled with beer and gulped it down in one go. The guys around cheered loudly at her drinking. Ooh, not bad. As expected of the daughter of Thomas Brewery. Come on, drink one more. Saying that, he filled her glass with beer again, and she downed it in one shot once more. I was surprised to learn she was the company's daughter, but I was impressed by her drinking style I had never seen at the previous parties. Just as I assumed she would be fine, the situation took a turn. It was probably around the fourth glass. After drinking it, instead of putting it on the table, she unsteadily placed it on the floor. With that momentum, she collapsed, and the guys who saw it burst out laughing. Hey, put it properly on the table or it's hard to pour. Saying that, he took the glass placed on the floor and returned it to the table, but Madison didn't move an inch. Perhaps finding it a bit suspicious, they didn't pour beer into the glass and called out to her. You okay? But there was no response from her, and shaking her body got no reaction. Concerned, I approached and checked on her like they did. Did something happen? When I asked that, they looked at me with slightly panicked expressions. Dunno. She just drank a few glasses of beer and collapsed. I also got close to her and called out, but there was no reply. Worried about her complexion, I changed the angle of her face-down posture so I could see it better. Then, not only was her complexion not normal, she also didn't have the flushed face typical of drunkenness. She just had a pained, pale expression. Seeing that, I gasped, and their faces also turned white as sheets. Young lady. The one who shouted that was Davis, who never left her side. He had apparently just returned from the bathroom. Davis immediately rushed to her side and checked her condition. "Oh no, what have you done? The young lady cannot drink alcohol." At his words, the guys who had pushed alcohol on her shrank back with shocked expressions. "We didn't know. She drank it herself. I didn't force her or anything." That seemed to add fuel to the fire. Davis glared at them, looking like he was about to punch them, not with his usual cold gaze. Realizing there was no more room for excuses, the guys felt too uncomfortable to stay there any longer and quickly left. "Anyway, I'm gonna go explain the situation to the bar staff. Watch over her until I get back. It might be acute alcohol poisoning, so make sure to keep her lying on her side until I return no matter what." Hearing that, Davis silently nodded. Perhaps because he was so shaken up, or because he didn't recognize me as one of their group, Davis surprisingly obediently did as told and supported her to prevent her from moving from her side. I explained the situation to the bar staff, and they let her rest in the break room until the ambulance arrived. Davis carried her on his back, and I walked with them to the break room just in case. She reacted a little then, so we were relieved for the time being. Arriving at the break room, we first loosened her clothing as much as possible, unbuttoning the collar and removing the belt around her waist. The bar staff brought water, and I woke her up and forced her to drink it. It hurts. I can't drink anymore. You have to. You need to dilute the alcohol in your blood. Please do your best to drink it." I managed to get her to drink 1 cup of water at least, then covered her with a blanket borrowed from the staff to keep her warm and waited for the ambulance. Once things settled down, Davis and I were given a brief respite. "Thank you for your quick response. It was a big help." No, it was nothing. This was unfortunate for her too. Who would have thought this would happen? If only I hadn't gone to the bathroom. Well, it's not your fault, so don't worry about it. By the way, this is the first time we've actually talked, isn't it? I'm Kyle, a sophomore. Once again, nice to meet you. Saying that, I held out my hand, and he shook it without hesitation. "I'm Davis. I've been assigned as the young lady's attendant by the company CEO." "What? You mean you're not Madison's boyfriend?" At that, he hastily replied, "Certainly not. I was simply told to keep an eye on the young lady, who cannot drink alcohol so much despite being the daughter of a brewery, to make sure she doesn't do anything reckless at college." "Oh, so that's how it is. I totally thought you were her boyfriend." "Well, I prefer it that way. It keeps suspicious men from approaching her." "True." I laughed as I said that. "Mister, have you had a lot of experience with this kind of thing? You gave quick, practiced treatment. Drop the stiff way of addressing me. Just call me Kyle like normal." When I said that, Davis made a slightly reluctant face. "Kyle, then. There you go." Well, the environment I was born and raised in was already a heavy drinking village, so I'm used to this kind of thing. What? Could it be that famous heavy drinking village? That's the one. Wait, is the area I live in that well known? Absolutely. Among breweries, that village is often brought up in conversation. I guess that makes sense. If they're buying that much alcohol, it wouldn't be strange for the name to be known. Saying that, he dropped his shoulders a bit and muttered softly with a relieved expression, "If you're from that village, I might be able to trust you with a young lady." Did you say something? I couldn't hear what he said and asked again, and Davis turned to face me properly and sat up straight. No, Kyle. Would you please protect the young lady in my stead?" I was perplexed by the sudden request. Wait. Isn't this too sudden? First of all, we just met and started talking, and I've barely even spoken to her. It's fine. Right now, only you and I are in this room, and the young lady is asleep and hasn't noticed. I'll make up a convincing story to the CEO and young lady. The way you say make up a story is scary. Just what are you planning to say? that under the guise of CPR, you took the young lady's first kiss. Stop that. Don't steal her innocence with a lie like that. Besides, the CEO probably knows CPR isn't necessary for acute alcohol poisoning. True. Then, once the young lady regains consciousness, like this, Davis kept trying to persuade me to give in until the ambulance arrived. I refuted all of his proposals with sound arguments, talking back to avoid being fooled by Davis until the ambulance came. In the meantime, the ambulance arrived. After the paramedics carried Madison away, we returned to the drinking party, but Davis's desperate persuasion continued there too. We must have seemed like an unusual pair to onlookers. I could feel people watching us with curious gazes, but I was preoccupied with dodging Davis's persuasion. Later, word spread around campus that Madison was the daughter of Thomas Brewery, and the man always by her side wasn't her boyfriend, just an attendant. Hearing that, the guys must have thought they still had a chance, because their passionate approach us toward her increased even more than when she first enrolled. However, just like before, Madison never ended up alone with any of them, and all approaches were shot down with a single glance from Davis. The frequency of encountering the two of them didn't change after that, but amidst it all, whenever Davis and I made eye contact, he would smile and nod at me for some reason. I was happy that we seemed to have gotten closer, but Madison's reaction was the opposite of his. Every time she saw me, she would glare at me with a wary expression and hide behind Davis. He said he would make up a convincing story back then, but just what did Davis say to make her dislike me this much? With those thoughts, I spent my student life in a slightly complex state of mind. One morning, a week after the social gathering, I was woken up by the doorbell. It was 6 a.m. No one had ever come to visit this early before. Still half asleep but dressed enough to go outside, I opened the front door to find a tough-looking man standing there. Black suit, black sunglasses, and a completely shaved head and eyebrows. The kind of guy who looked like he could knock me out in an instant with a sturdy build completely filled the doorway. "Can I help you?" But the response to that question wasn't in words. The man grabbed me and threw me over his shoulder. Dazed and unsure what was happening, I realized we were moving away from my apartment building towards a fancy black car parked on the street. I'm really sorry. I won't do anything else, so please forgive me. I had no recollection of doing anything wrong. Still, I desperately apologized in a trembling voice for some unknown offense, hoping to be forgiven even a little. Unfortunately, my pleas fell on deaf ears and I was tossed into the back seat of the car. I said I was dressed enough to go outside, but they were pajamas, so I felt out of place in this luxury car. What were they going to do to me now? Where were they taking me? Clearly sensing an ominous atmosphere and figuring resistance was futile, I obediently sat in the seat. Just as I was steeling myself, preparing to say my final goodbyes to my parents and accept my fate. "Hey," a woman's voice came from the seat next to me as I was collecting my thoughts. I had been so preoccupied with my own situation that I hadn't noticed someone was beside me. Startled, I reflexively responded in a cracking voice. What's with that voice? The one mocking my cracking voice was none other than the daughter of Thomas Brewery, Madison. "Huh? Why are you here?" Then Davis popped his head out from the front passenger seat. "Kyle, good morning. Did you sleep well last night?" "Davis, no. This isn't the time for casual greetings. Explain the situation." "What? You weren't told anything. What's going on, Davis?" "Huh? I thought I told you. Today's the day you're meeting Miss Madison's father before school." "What? See, I did tell you, Kyle." "Oh, but you were drinking a lot yesterday too, so you probably forgot." This was also something I had no memory of whatsoever. I'm not the type to black out from drinking, so I remember everything even when I'm drunk. And yet, I had no recollection of Davis telling me any such thing. Thinking that, I tried searching my memory just in case to see if such a scene had occurred, but there was no way I could find it. Then looking at Davis, he was making eye contact with me, silently pleading for me to play along. This guy. "So you're the type to lose your memory from drinking too much? I wonder if it's really okay to leave things to this guy. And in such foolish-looking clothes too. Okay for what? What's going to happen to me? You sure ask a lot of questions. If you're gonna sit next to me, shut up and straighten up. It's unsightly." I yielded to Madison's pressure and didn't open my mouth again after that. And I did my best to tidy up my pajamas that I had worn for years, to make them look as presentable as possible, then sat up straight and waited quietly. The car arrived at Madison's house, as expected. It was a huge house, with several storehouses labeled brandy barrels lined up in the backyard. Thomas Brewery is famous for having some of the largest brandy barrels in the world, with the company CEO himself making the brandy. That brandy is traded at high prices all over the world, and there isn't a single brandy lover who doesn't know of Thomas Brewery. I was shown into the residence of that famous company, and apparently I was about to meet the CEO. Since hearing that, a cold sweat had been running down my back the whole time. Led into a living room several times the size of my own room. The CEO was sitting there with a newspaper spread out on the table. "Father, I've brought him." When Madison said that, the CEO lowered the newspaper and glared at me once. But the next moment, his expression completely changed and he greeted me with a kind face. I figured Madison's rich facial expressions must come from her father. It must have been tough getting up so early. "Come, have a seat." At his words, I sat in the chair across from the CEO. The chair had such luxurious decorations that it felt wrong for me to be sitting in it, so I tried to minimize the surface area I was touching as much as possible. Madison sat to my right, positioned so she could see me and the CEO facing each other. "I heard you took good care of my daughter last week." "No, I merely did what anyone would have done." Hearing my response, the CEO nodded with satisfaction and muttered that I was a good kid. Then the CEO opened a large bottle on his right and poured the liquid into a glass until it was almost overflowing. "Well, this is a token of my gratitude. Have a drink." Having been woken up early in the morning, not much time had passed, so I had no desire to drink, but given the situation I had no choice. I said cheers and gulped down the generously poured liquid in one go. I knew it was alcohol even before drinking it, but it felt like it had the highest alcohol content I had ever tasted. Wow, this is incredible brandy. It's delicious. I'm not a big fan of brandy because I don't like its characteristic sweetness, but this was different. The sweetness was greatly subdued, and instead it had a strong, throat-burning spiciness unique to liquor. It was exactly the kind of brandy I liked. It is, isn't it? This is a special brew we put our heart and soul into, and it's not on the market yet. If I had to guess the price, probably several $100,000 per bottle. Hearing that made me want to spit back up everything I had drunk. What? Why would you give something that expensive to someone like me? As thanks for helping my daughter, of course. Even so, that's way too much. Well, I do have a small favor to ask too. The CEO scratched his head, looking a bit hesitant to say it. As you know, my daughter can't hold her liquor at all. Even though she's the daughter of a brewery, she can barely drink. "Father, I've been training hard lately, and I can drink a little now," Madison interjected, puffing out her cheeks in discontent. The CEO looked flustered at her reaction. "And I heard from Davis that you're from that heavy drinking village, right?" "Yes, that's right. So I was wondering if you could take over for Davis as my daughter's guardian from now on." I was at a loss for words, perplexed by this sudden request. Honestly, I would be thrilled to be by the side of such a beautiful girl for any reason. But the part about that reason being to be her guardian gave me some pause. As I struggled to answer, the CEO poured the same brandy into the glass until it was almost overflowing again and held it out to me. The CEO nodded silently, pressuring me to drink it as if to say go on. Feeling that pressure, I gulped down another full glass. "I understand. I'll do it. Be her guardian." Hearing that, the CEO smiled with satisfaction. "I'm glad to hear that. You see, Davis can't drink either. He's useless in situations with a lot of drinking. Come to think of it, I had a drink with Davis a bit after Madison was taken to the hospital, and I recall him getting tipsy after just a few drinks." I looked back at him and he averted his gaze, looking a bit awkward. "Not only that, but recently some lowlifes have been trying to blackmail us, using the fact that my daughter can't drink to damage the company. If that happens, it will not only hurt the company, but also my daughter, who will inherit it in the future. I can too drink," Madison muttered under her breath. "So please, lend us your strength. I'm begging you," the CEO asked me kindly. Seeing that, I had no reason to refuse. And so, I became the one to stay by her side as her guardian from then on. On the way back to the car, there was one thing about her that concerned me, so I asked, "Madison, are you really okay with this? I get the feeling you've been glaring at me a lot lately, so I thought maybe you didn't like me." She glared at me just like that time and turned away. "I don't mind. Besides, you stole my first kiss. You have to take responsibility for that." Her ears were bright red as she said it. I quickly glanced at Davis walking in front of us. Davis was looking at me with a devilish grin on his face. That guy. What's this about a first kiss? The CEO was suddenly standing right behind me. Madison and I flinched and hurriedly tried to make excuses. Seeing us like that, the CEO laughed in exasperation. As Madison and Davis got into the car one after another, the CEO called out to me again. "Kyle, I said guardian for my daughter's brandy, but your drinking was truly splendid. Next time we meet, would you drink with me as a friend? I've lost drinking buddies one after another lately." The CEO said it with a hint of loneliness. "Of course. I'd be happy to hang out with you anytime." At that, the CEO's face lit up like a child's. "Really? I'm so glad to hear that. I'm counting on you from now and then." Saying that, I bowed once and headed for the car. "Oh, and treat my daughter with moderation. There's a proper order to these things. Seems you stole her first time, so that's a heavy responsibility." He made that suggestive comment loud enough for Madison to hear, and her face turned even redder as she closed the car door window. And so, I spent my time until graduation as Madison's bodyguard and boyfriend, never leaving her side. We still attended drinking parties regularly to cut loose, but Madison seemed to enjoy watching the lively atmosphere while moderately drinking in her own non-alcoholic way. After that, I graduated a bit before Madison. The place I got a job was of course at Thomas Brewery, but I didn't want to be treated differently from other new employees just because I knew the CEO, so I asked him to treat me like a regular employee. Still, some days after work we would drink together as friends. However, right when Madison graduated, her father's health took a turn for the worse and the situation changed drastically. He stepped down as CEO and appointed his daughter Madison as the next CEO, as planned. But Madison's father thought running a company would be too much for his daughter, who had just graduated, so he asked me to support her as her secretary. As his friend and unable to refuse Madison's father's request, I took on that role and fulfilled those duties, relying on Davis and the other employees to make up for my inexperience. Having shared joys and hardships with Madison like this, I officially got engaged to her. When I reported this to my parents back home, they were overjoyed, which was a relief. Of course, part of their happiness was probably because they would be able to drink Thomas Brewery's brandy, not purely because of the marriage itself. Still, I was glad they readily accepted my marriage to Madison. Born and raised in a region of heavy drinkers, I experienced many things both good and bad, but I was thankful for the environment I grew up in and the bonds alcohol helped me form. And so, Madison and I drank our cups up in a pledge to each other,